Shneur Zalman of Liadi, was an Orthodox rabbi, and the founder and first Rebbe of Chabad, a branch of Hasidic Judaism, then based in Liadi, Imperial Russia. He was the author of many works, and is best known for Shulchan Aruch, Harav, Tanya and his Siddur Torah, or compiled according to the Nuzachari. He is also known as the Baal HaTanya, and by a variety of other names including Shneur Zalman Baruchovich being the Russian patronymic from his father Baruch, by the acronym Rishaz, by the title Baal HaTanya ve Shulchan Aruch as the Alter Rebbe, Admor Hazakan, Rabbeinu Hazakain, Rabbeinu Hagadol, our great rabbi, the Graz, and Rav. Biography. Early life. Shneur Zalman was born in 1745 in the small town of Liozna, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. He was the son of Baruch, grade 5 grandson of the mystic and philosopher Rabbi Judah Loew, the Maharal of Prague. He was a prominent disciple of Rabbi Dovber of Mezerich, the great Maggid, who was in turn the successor of the founder of Hasidism, Rabbi Yisrael ben Eliezer, known as the Baal Shem Tov. He displayed extraordinary talent while still a child. By the time he was 8 years old, he wrote an all-inclusive commentary on the Chumash based on the works of Rashi, the Ramban and Ibn Ezra. Until the age of 12, he studied under Rabbi Issachar Ber in Lyubavitchi. He distinguished himself as a Talmudist, such that his teacher sent him back home, informing his father that the boy could continue his studies without the aid of a teacher. At his bar mitzvah celebration, he delivered a discourse concerning the complicated laws of Kiddush HaChodesh, to which the people of the town granted him the title Rav. At age 15 he married Sterna Siegel, the daughter of Yehuda Leib Siegel, a wealthy resident of Vitebsk, and he was then able to devote himself entirely to study. During these years, Shneur Zalman was introduced to mathematics, geometry and astronomy by two learned brothers, refugees from Bohemia, who had settled in Liozna. One of them was also a scholar of the Kabbalah. Thus, besides mastering rabbinic literature, he also acquired a fair knowledge of the sciences, philosophy, and Kabbalah. He became an adept in Isaac Luria's system of Kabbalah, and in 1764 he became a disciple of Rabbi Dovber of Mezerich. In 1767, at the age of 22, he was appointed Maggid of Liozna, a position he held until 1801. Children and succession. Rabbi Shneur Zalman's sons were Dovber Schneeri, who eventually succeeded him, Chaim Avraham, and Moshe, who allegedly converted to Catholicism. Moshe's apostasy is negated by Chabad sources, but supported by Belarusian state archives in Minsk, uncovered by historian Shaul Stampfer. Rabbi Shneur Zalman's daughters were named Frieda, Devorah, Leah and Rochelle. Other families have law telling that they are also descendants of the Alter Rebbe, but they are undocumented in existing family records of the Alter Rebbe's descendants. Dovber Schneeri. Rabbi Dovber Schneeri succeeded his father as Rebbe of the Chabad movement. At the age of 39, while studying in the city of Kremenchug, his father died. He then moved to the small border town of Lubavitchi, from which the movement would take its name. His accession was disputed by one of his father's prime students, Rabbi Aharon Halevi of Strashali. However, the majority of Shneur Zalman's followers stayed with Dovber, and moved to Lubavitchi. Thus Chabad had now split into two branches, each taking the name of their location to differentiate themselves from each other. He established a yeshiva in Lubavitch, which attracted gifted young scholars. His son-in-law, Rabbi Menahem Mendel of Lubavitch, headed the yeshiva, and later became his successor. Thus, while Rabbi Dovber Schneeri succeeded his father as Rebbe of the Chabad movement, a senior disciple of his father, Rabbi Aharon Halevi of Strashali, a popular and respected figure, differed with him on a number of issues and led a breakaway movement. Strashali. When Shneur Zalman died, many of his followers flocked to one of his top students, Rabbi Aharon Halevi of Strashali. He had been Shneur Zalman's closest disciple for over 30 years. while many more became followers of Dov Bashnari, known to his followers as the Mittler Rebbe. The Strachely school of Chassidic thought was the subject of many of Dobber's discourses. Reb Aharon Halevi emphasized the importance of basic emotions in divine service. The Mittler Rebbe did not reject the role of emotion in prayer, but emphasized that if the emotion in prayer is to be genuine, it can only be a result of contemplation and understanding of the explanations of Chassidus, which in turn will lead to an attainment of Bittul. In his work entitled Kuntas Hisperalis, the Mittler Rebbe argues that only through ridding oneself of what he considered disingenuous emotions could one attain the ultimate level in Chassidic worship. Moshe Schneerson was the youngest son of the founder of Chabad Lubavitch Hasidism, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. According to some scholars, he converted to Christianity and died in a street Petersburg asylum. Chabad sources say that his conversion and related documents were faked by the church. His conversion and mental infirmity and apostasy have been denied by the Chabad movement consistently since his death. Documents found by historian Shul Stamfer apparently document Schneerson's conversion to Christianity. The original documents are located in the National Historical Archives in Minsk, Belarus. These include a letter to the local priest in which he states his intent to convert and his baptismal certificate dated July 4, 1820. The documents also show that after his conversion he worked for the Tsar to assist in the conversion of other Jews. In Lithuania during the latter portion of Rabbi Dobber's life, his students dispersed over Europe, and after Rabbi Dobber's death, Rabbi Shneur Zalman became the leader of Hasidism in Lithuania, along with his senior colleague Menahem Mendel of Vitebsk. When Rabbi Menahem Mendel died, Rabbi Shneur Zalman was recognized as leader of the Chassidim in Lithuania. At the time, Lithuania was the center of the Misnagdim, and Rabbi Shneur Zalman faced much opposition. In 1774 he and Menahem Mendel of Vitebsk traveled to Vilna in an attempt to create a dialogue with the Vilna Gaon who led the Misnagdim and had issued a ban against the Hasidim. But the Gaon refused to see them. Undaunted by this antagonism, he succeeded in creating a large network of Hasidic centers. He also joined opposition to Napoleon's advance on Russia by recruiting his disciples to the Tsar's army. He was also active in canvassing financial support for the Jewish settlements in the land of Israel, then under the control of the Ottoman Empire. Philosophy. Chabad see Hasidic philosophy as a Talmudist. Rabbi Shneur Zalman endeavored to place Kabbalah and Hasidism on a rational basis. In his seminal work, Tanya, he defines his approaches. He chose the name Chabad for this philosophy, the Hebrew acronym for the intellectual attributes Chokmah, Bina, and Daat. Both in his works and in his sermons he indicated an intelligent and not a blind faith, and assumed an intellectual accessibility of the mystical teachings of the Kabbalah. This intellectual basis differentiates Chabad from other forms of Hasidism, in this context referred to as Chagus, the emotional attributes of Chesed, Gevurah, and Tifereth. Opposition to Napoleon and support for the Tsar during the French invasion of Russia. While many Polish Hasidic leaders supported Napoleon or remained quiet about their support, Rabbi Shneur Zalman openly and vigorously supported the Tsar. While fleeing from the advancing French army, he wrote a letter explaining his opposition to Napoleon to a friend, Rabbi Moshe Mazeles. Some argue that Rabbi Shneur Zalman's opposition stemmed from Napoleon's attempts to arouse a messianic view of himself in Jews, opening the gates of the ghettos and emancipating their residents as he conquered. He established an Erzatz Sanhedrin, recruiting Jews to his ranks, and spreading rumors about his conquest of the Holy Land to make Jews subversive for his own ends. Thus, his opposition was based on a practical fear of Jews turning to the false messianism of Napoleon as he saw it. It should be noted that Rabbi Israel Hopstein of Kozienice, another Hasidic leader, also considered Napoleon a menace to the Jewish people. However, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson identifies Rabbi Yisrael as the Chassidic leader who preferred that Napoleon defeat the Tsar. Arrests in 1797 following the death of the Gaon. Leaders of the Vilna community falsely accused the Hasidim of subversive activities, on charges of supporting the Ottoman Empire. Since Rabbi Shneur Zalman advocated sending charity to support Jews living in the Ottoman territory of Palestine. In 1798 he was arrested on suspicion of treason and brought to St. Petersburg, where he was held in the Petropavlovsky fortress for 53 days, at which time he was subjected to an examination by a secret commission. Ultimately he was released by order of Paul I of Russia. The Hebrew day of his acquittal and release, 19 Kislev 5559 on the Hebrew calendar, is celebrated annually by Chabad Hasidim, who hold a festive meal and make communal pledges to learn the whole of the Talmud. This practice is known as Chalukas Hayes in Chabad tradition. His imprisonment is interpreted as a reflection of accusations in heaven that he was revealing his new dimensions of mystical teachings too widely. The traditional tendency to conceal Jewish mysticism is founded on the Kabbalistic notion of the Sephiroth. The side of divine chesed seeks to give physical and spiritual blessing without restriction. This is counterbalanced by the side of Gevurah, which measures and restricts the flow to the capacity and merit of the recipient. The subsequent Sephirah of Hod implements any restriction in order to preserve the glory of the divine majesty. In the Hasidic story of an earlier episode among the Holy Society disciples of Dovber of Mizerich, one of the great followers saw a page of Hasidic writings blowing around the courtyard. He regretted the undue dissemination of Hasidut for its desecration of divine holiness. In the account, his vocalization of these thoughts caused a heavenly accusation against the Majid for revealing too much. The young Shneur Zalman replied with a famous Hasidic parable. A king had an only son who became ill and all the attending doctors were at a loss of how to heal him. A wise person understood the only possible cure. He told the king that he would have to desecrate the royal crown by removing its most precious jewel. This would have to be ground up and fed to the king's son. The king regretted the loss to his majesty but immediately agreed that the life of his son was more important. The jewel was ground and the solution was fed to the son. Most of the cure fell to the ground, but the son received a few drops and became cured. Concluded Shneur Zalman in defense of Hasidic dissemination. The king represents God, and the son represents the Jewish community, who recognized the God of Israel. At the time of the emerging Hasidic movement, the Jewish people were at a physical and spiritual low ebb. The only cure would be the dissemination of the inner divine teachings of Hasidic thought. Even though this would also involve their desecration, this would fully be justified in order to heal the people. The accusing student of the Majid realized the wisdom of this, and agreed with Shneur Zalman. When the Majid heard about this, he told Shneur Zalman that, "You have saved me from the heavenly accusation." The story of this parable is famous across other Hasidic dynasties as well. Chabad commentary asks about this the question of why a new heavenly accusation would have arisen against Rabbi Shneur Zalman himself, and result in his incarceration in St. Petersburg. Had he not already received the heavenly agreement to the wisdom of disseminating Chassidic teachings? Since Chabad thought presented Hasidic thought with a new degree of elucidation in intellectual form, this caused a new, more severe heavenly accusation to emerge. This went beyond the justified spiritual revival and healing of mainstream Hasidism. Here, in Hasidic thought, Shneur Zalman was seeking to fulfill the messianic impulse to disseminate Hasidic philosophy as a preparation for Mashiach. Therefore, his subsequent exoneration by the Tsarist authorities is interpreted in Chabad as a new heavenly agreement to begin the fullest dissemination of Hasidic thought without its prior limitations. A bad tradition tells that in prison, Shneur Zalman was visited by the deceased Baal Shem Tov and Majid of Mizrach, who told him the reason for his imprisonment. In reply to the question of whether he should stop, they replied that once released, he should continue with even more dedication. Therefore, in Chabad thought, the 19th day of Kislev is called the New Year of Hasidut, complementing the other 4 halachic New Year dates in the Hebrew calendar. In 1800, Rabbi Shneur Zalman was again arrested and transported to St. Petersburg, this time along with his son Moshe, who served as interpreter, as his father spoke no Russian or French. He was released after several weeks but banned from leaving St. Petersburg. The elevation of Tsar Alexander I a few weeks later led to his release. He was then given full liberty to proclaim his religious teachings by the Russian government. According to some, his first arrest was not the result of anti-Hasidic agitators fabricating charges, or officials seeking extortion monies. An accusation was made on May 8, 1798 by Hirsch ben David of Vilna, accused him of trying to assist the French Revolution by sending money to Napoleon and the Sultan. Since this Hirsch ben David was untraceable, some were led to believe that there was no such person as Hirsch, and the authorities were attempting to stir up internecine fighting among the Jews. Liadi. After his release, he moved his base to Liadi, Vitebsk region, Imperial Russia, rather than returning to Lyozna. He took up his residence in the town of Liadi at the invitation of Prince Stanislaw Lubomirsky, voivode of the town. There his movement grew immensely, and he is still associated with the town to this day. In 1812, fleeing the French invasion, he left Mogilev, intending to go to Poltava, but died on the way in the small village of Penya, Kursk Oblast. He is buried in Hadych. Subsequent history of Chabad. See Chabad Lubavitch. History. Rabbi Dobashner moved the movement to the town of Lubavitch in present-day Russia. A top follower of Rabbi Shneur Zalman, Rabbi Aharon Halevi Horowitz, established a rival Chabad school in Strashali, which did not last after his death. In 1940, under the leadership of the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchok Schneerson, the Chabad Lubavitch movement moved its headquarters to Brooklyn, New York in the United States. Under the leadership of Rabbi Menahem Mendel Schneerson, Chabad established branches all over the world staffed by its own Lubavitch-trained and ordained rabbis with their wives and children. The number of branches continues to grow to this day, and existing branches continue to expand. Many descendants of Rabbi Shneur Zalman carry surnames such as Schneur, Schneeri, Schneerson, and Zalman. Works. Rabbi Shneur Zalman was a prolific writer. He produced works of both mysticism and Jewish law. A bad tradition recasts his Yiddish name, Shneur, as the two Hebrew words, Shneur, referring to Shneur Zalman's mastery of both the outer dimensions of Talmudist Jewish study, and the inner dimensions of Jewish mysticism. His works form the cornerstone of Chabad philosophy. His ability to explain even the most complex issues of Torah made his writings popular with Torah scholars everywhere. Tanya. He is probably best known for his systematic exposition of Hasidic Jewish philosophy, entitled Likutei Amarim, more widely known as the Tanya, first published in 1797. Due to the popularity of this book, Hasidic Jews often refer to Rabbi Shneur Zalman as the Baal HaTanya. The Tanya deals with Jewish spirituality and psychology from a Kabbalistic point of view, and expounds on such profound themes as the oneness of God, Tzimtzum, the Sephiroth, Simcha, Bitashon, among many other mystical concepts. Shulchan Aruch Harav. Rabbi Shneur Zalman is well known for the Shulchan Aruch Harav, his version of the classic Shulchan Aruch, an authoritative code of Jewish law and custom commissioned by Rabbi Dober of Mizrach and composed at the age of 20. The Majid of Mizrach sought a new version of the Shulchan Aruch for the Hasidic movement. The work states the decided halakha, as well as the underlying reasoning. The Shulchan Aruch is considered authoritative by other Hasidim, and citations to this work are many times found in non-Hasidic sources such as the Mishnah Berurah used by Lithuanian Jews and the Ben Ish Chai used by Sephardic Jews. Rabbi Shneur Zalman is also one of three halachic authorities on whom Shlomo Gansfried based his Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Siddur Torah, or he also edited the first Shabbat Siddur, based on the Ari Siddur of the famous Kabbalist Rabbi Isaac Luria of Safed, but he altered it for general use, and corrected its textual errors. Today's Siddur Tehillat Hashem is a later print of Shneur Zalman's Siddur. Music and arts. The current custom of Lubavitch is to hum a solemn melody before the wedding canopy. It is tradition that the melody was composed by Rabbi Shneur Zalman. This melody is solemn in contrast to the joyous melodies sung by other Orthodox sects. Other Rabbi Shneur Zalman's other works include Torah and Likutei Torah, Chassidic explanations of the weekly Torah portions, Shir HaShirim, and the Book of Esther, drawn from his Hasidic discourses and published by his grandson, the Zemek Tzedek, who added his own glosses. Sefer HaMamorim, also known as Marmarei Admor HaZarkain, Hasidic discourses. Hanachot Harib, et Halite Liosna, 5562 2 volume, 5563, 2 volume, 5564, 5565, 2 volume, 5566, 5567, 5568. 2 volume, 5569, 5570, 5571, Hikarim, Al Parshiot HaTorah Vehamo Adam, 2 volume, Inyanim, Marmarei Razal, Nak, 3 volume, Hilchot Talmud Torah, on the study of Torah, Sefer Shilot Yut Shuvot, Responsa, Siddur Imdak, a prayer book with Hasidic discourses. Bonei Yerushalayim, Meah Shiarim, Igrot Kodesh, 2 volume.